Give it to South Americans to make something exciting out of beans and rice. This is episode 3 of Affordable Meals. Today it's not street food, today it's a recipe born out of leftovers. We are making Tacu-Tacu. It's a Peruvian rice bean cake. This can be a meal on its own when served with a few condiments, but it makes a perfect side when served with other leftovers or a fried egg on top. I prepared my beans ahead of time, I soaked them overnight, and then I boiled them in lightly salted water until they fell apart. This is the result. Of course, you can use canned Myocoba beans, that makes it even easier. While pretty much any bean works for this, the ones that fall apart when cooking are the best. Myocoba beans do this, and that's the traditional Peruvian bean. Since these beans are grown in the US these days, you shouldn't have any problems finding them in a well-sorted supermarket. Traditionally, this recipe is served with condiments. Most common is the Peruvian Salsa Criolla. I'm pretty certain I just butchered that word. Let's quickly make a Salsa Criolla. We start with red onions, that's the base of the salsa. And also we're gonna need a red onion later for the beans, so only chop it once. For the salsa, slice the onion. I do this lengthwise because it looks prettier. Once you cut your onions, you put them in a bowl with cold water and let them steep in there for at least an hour. That takes all the bitterness out of the onions and only leaves you with the fruity notes. We don't have that much time, so I prepared the onions and soaked them for a while. I'm quickly chopping up the onions that I cut for demonstration because we're gonna need them for the beans. Next is peppers. If you can get Amarillo peppers, use them. I never heard of those before this recipe and I couldn't find any, not even jarred, but it's a fairly mild and fruity yellow pepper. I'm simply substituting a red bell pepper and a little bit of jalapeno for it, so I have the heat from the one and the fruity from the other. Not exactly traditional, but work with what you got. Last but not least, you need chopped cilantro. If you're not a fan of cilantro, you can either leave it out or, for example, substitute it with basil or parsley. Add the peppers, the onions, and the cilantro to a bowl. Squeeze a bunch of lime juice over this. Add a nice pinch of cumin, salt, a few grains of pepper, and a little bit of some kind of neutral oil. Mix it up and set aside for later. The beans don't take long because they're already cooked. So let's quickly get the rice going because that takes the longest. To a preheated pot, add a little bit of oil, or as usual, I'm using clarified butter for the better flavor. Toss in some minced garlic. Do not let that garlic brown, you just want it a little bit warm and fragrant. This is already good. Add your rinsed rice and just stir so that the fat coats the rice. Maybe let it roast for a minute. And then add 1 1/4 times the amount of water in the rice. It depends on the rice. This is a regular jasmine long grain. Once it boils, put on a lid, turn it down to low and ignore it for the next 10 to 15 minutes. While the rice cooks, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode. Thank you. Add a little bit of fat to a pan or a pot. Toss in your bacon. Of course, you could omit the bacon, but it just wouldn't taste the same. Let that bacon render a little. Add your red onions. The bacon brings enough salt, so there's no need to add salt. Stir. Let go soft. Add a little bit of oregano. Toss in the Achiote paste. Not sure if I pronounced that right. And then you need a good spoonful of this stuff. You can find the Achiote and this pepper paste in a Mexican or a Latino store. Once the onions are cooked and everything is nice and combined, just toss it to your beans. I'm just mashing this together a little bit. As you can see, you do not cook this anymore. Once the rice is cooked, season it lightly. And then mix the rice into the beans. How much rice you use depends on how much liquid is in your beans. You use it as a binder and you use it to soak up extra liquid. My beans are pretty stiff, so I won't need much rice. You want a pretty firm consistency here. Don't be careful about this, it's actually desirable to mash up the beans. Time to preheat a cast iron skillet. If you don't have cast iron, a non-stick pan will work. A stainless pan not so much, because it will stick to a stainless pan. You do not get up to the right temperature. Add a little bit of fat, again fat of choice. You can do a big cake or several smaller ones. Personally, I prefer smaller ones because they are much easier to flip over. Put your mixture in and then squeeze it into a patty shape. We are talking 1/2 inch thick patty here. Now let this fry for about 5-6 minutes until the bottom side is nice and crisp. Time to flip and let it roast on the other side. These patties don't store well, so make them when you want to eat them.